Recording.
Action.
Recording.
What up?
What's up, dude?
Shit, man. We got, I'm going to jump right into it. We just got one of those little splash looking things that, you know, like your kid has. And, dude, my kid lost his shit. I was like, I have this relief, this weight was lifted because I'm like, oh, something to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yes. So something that small just made my entire fucking like week. I'm stoked.
Dude, those splash tables are legit, man. Knox loves his shit.
I know. I see it all the time, and I'm like, dude, I got to get one of those. So we got him one, and yeah, it's game on. So I'm just because I'm running out of shit to do with them. So I was excited.
Dude, trust me, man. I fucking know, dude. Like
right?
Every fucking day, it's like, okay, what's today?
Well, they're you know we're I don't know. I guess we're kind of going back to work, so I've got to start figuring that out now. Now we're not letting people in and shit. We're still being curbside only, but I'm like there pretty much my normal schedule starting next week, which is it's going to be hard to get back into like work mode. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
It's going to be a little strange.
But is daycare like?
No, daycare is off the table. Luckily, my sister works in daycare, at a daycare, so until daycare's open back up, she's at home as well. So it worked out. I got lucky as shit. So she can hang out with my kid.
Yeah, that's that. It's like, how can you tell us that people are going back to work and then not open schools or daycares?
Well, here's the other thing, though. Would you let your kid go to daycare tomorrow? I wouldn't.
I mean, I don't know. Like,
all right.
I mean, my fucking daycare is the daycare that, like, they're apparently taking care of all the first responders. And
I saw that. They're open, actually, for certain families.
They're fucking, like, crushing it. So I figure my daycare, if any daycare was, like, set up to take kids and be, like, somewhat healthy about it, like, my daycare would be. But, like, you also got to look at it like if, you know, you're fucking a first responder or in the medical field or something like that, and you've got it and you're still going to work, like, your kid's going to have it. Like,
yeah, I know.
Daycare. So it's like, but, I mean, everything is going to start the same way, man. Everybody's going to start getting, like, their temperature checked, like, right in, like, you know.
Yeah, it's I mean, eventually we have to make this transition. It's just like all of a sudden, you know, I got the call and it's like, you're going in, and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm not mentally prepared for this. You know what I'm saying? Like I've worked a little bit, but not like full on like, okay, work mode, like shit, I got to make money now. Oh God. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'll figure it out, but it's just, and honestly, just not being around my kid every day is going to suck balls. I think we bitched about that fucking every episode since we've been here.
Yeah, man. No, I fucking do. Like, I mean, when the proverbial shoe drops and you know, work goes back into the swing of things, like, it's like, okay, man, like, I'm used to seeing everybody all the time or, you know, wife and kids all the time. And
yeah, no shit. Yeah, well, man, dude, honestly, I think we need to fucking start getting out of the house anyway, so we got some more shit to talk about at the beginning of a fucking episode, because even though every episode we talk about sitting at home and playing with our kids, people still listen because we just cracked, what, 6,700? I think is what the mark that we just cracked, dude, which is amazing. And fucking Bulgaria, we're number 47 on the charts. What? Like, thanks, Bulgaria.
Like we've been ranked in some crazy high spots in some other countries, like just out of the blue, like
Romania, like
England,
South Africa,
in England.
Yeah. So, what's up, America? What the fuck?
We actually have a fairly high, like there's a large, like, famous following that, you know, there's some celebrities that follow us, like Abraham Lincoln. He follows us, like Joan of Arc. She's all over our podcast. You know, she's out there like tweeting it when she's not like revolting against the monarchy and shit. So
yeah, well, she's not this famous, but I think Jessica Alba popped up and said hello once, which was pretty sweet. Although I'm pretty sure it was somebody that was just saying that they were Jessica Alba, but I was happy regardless.
Yeah, so
I'll take it.
So
Win.
that's
It's a win.
right.
Yeah. So thanks for still sticking with us, guys, because even though that basically we take this time at the beginning of an episode literally to catch up, we do eventually get to the story. So thanks for sticking through.
Yeah.
Shit, man.
All those followers, when they do interact with us, do it through our Instagram and our Facebook pages.
Nail it. At Based on True Events podcast.
That's right.
That's awesome. Also, they hit us up on the Twitter.
Podcast BOTE, BOTE.
That's right. People are starting to actually watch us, and they're attempting to friend us, which I didn't realize you could do that on YouTube, but you can at
Based on True Events podcast BOTE, BOTE.
There it is. We do have Rock the Boat. We do have Rock the Boat, which is our Facebook group, which is a little bit different than our page. It's where we want you to interact and shoot the shit and whatever, comment, suggest, whatever with us. So keep that going. What else? If you don't fuck with us on social medias, if you don't want to friend us on YouTube, then hit us up on our Gmail at
Based on True Events podcast at gmail.com.
There it is. Right
and
on. We still go ahead.
I'm just going to say we're doing our I Wrote for BOTE contest every month. We best suggestion gets a T-shirt, and now it's when we get suggestions up, we're going to be posting the suggestions and letting you guys pick and vote on what suggested episodes you want to hear
first
in the coming weeks. So.
Yeah, and I dig that. We had a good response, and last week you fucking crushed the number one choice, which was the Antarctica's Lost Civilization. So if you haven't listened to that, or if for some reason you think the title, and I feel like some of our titles are super catchy, and so people are going to go, ooh, that sounds weird or dark or whatever, and some of them are more like history related, don't skip over it. I'm telling you, like, we don't do anything boring on this fucking show, for real. It's kind of all over the place, but none of it's fucking boring, especially if it's a chef episode and there's history involved. You're getting a fucking lesson. So go back and listen to that shit. It was awesome.
I appreciate it. That was kind of in my wheelhouse. While I did do some, I brushed up on the details going into that episode. A lot of that episode was just in my head. A lifetime of preparing for that episode.
Right. You're like, finally, somebody fucking asked me. Finally.
Well,
no, so
I tried to do as much justice as I could for, I tried to fit in as much of the cool stuff as I could for, an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it was, of actually talking about it. I mean, we could have, like we said, that could be like a fucking mini series and we'd be talking about it for months, but it's time to move on to some other topics and some other subjects.
There it is. So basically, perfect segue into this evening's episode, which was the number 2 vote. Montauk Island, I believe, was the actual topic that we posted. And I didn't know shit about this, first of all, nothing. And so we had it, I'll take the guilt, but I'm pretty sure we had it spelt wrong. So it's actually Montauk, Montauk Island. But I didn't really, I'm going to talk about two things. There's a lot, actually, from what I found, like a whole lot, like, dude, and I swear to God, if another fucking topic that has nothing to do with aliens involves aliens somehow, I'm a fucking shit, dude. I could not believe that aliens, like the first thing when I Googled it, Montauk Island, there's a picture of a fucking alien and in a old building, and I'm like, how in the hell So, but I didn't know anything about it. So we're not going to talk too much about aliens, but there's some weird ass shit. And I got super excited, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But so this is the number 2 vote.
It's not fucking aliens.
It's not fucking aliens. That's the next shirt. It's not fucking aliens. So, well, and you actually, because I think I was bitching about conspiracy theory or something, and you were like, well, have fun with Montauk Island then. And I was like, oh, no, why? And so you sent me a picture of this weird looking animal, and I started Googling, and that was what started me down the rabbit hole. But the Montauk Monster is one of the most famous stories or things having to do with this island. And apparently Montauk is literally like Staten Island.
Yeah.
Like it's not, yeah, I thought it was a different country. I'm like, oh no, this is like New York. So, Eastern New York, I think, or something. But, anyway, I guess New York's all Eastern, but you know what I'm saying? So the Montauk Monster, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because immediately I got pissed. I was like, oh, well, fuck. So the Montauk Monster, if you guys have not seen the photo, if you Google it, trust me, it's a weird looking creature that I guess washed up from the shore as a carcass. The story began on July 23rd, 2008. Basically there was 3 friends that were on the beach hanging out, watching surfers or some shit. 2008. And there's some people gathered around. So they went over and there was this carcass. And so this girl, Jenna Hewitt, she was 26 years old. She took a picture of it. And then I'm not even going to spend too much time, but essentially the photograph started making its way around, and media started getting a hold of it and doing what the media does. And there's the telephone game. Now it's a monster. And there was theories. This girl says, we were looking for a place to sit when we saw some people looking at something. We didn't know what it was. We joked that maybe it was something from Plum Island. So Plum Island is do you know what that is? Just curious.
I'm actually lightly familiar with not only the Montauk Monster story, but like some of the stuff that kind of goes along with it. So I don't want to steal your thunder and like.
Well, that's fine. I didn't know if this was something that people knew about, and I was just the only one that's fucking lost in the dark. But so Plum Island it's basically Plum Island Animal Disease Center. So. Yeah. It basically says since 1954, the center has had a goal of protecting America's livestock from animal diseases. During the Cold War, a secret biological weapons program targeting livestock was conducted at the site, although it had slowly declined through the end of the century. This program has been controversial for years. So the girls, of course, joked about, oh, well, maybe it's, some sort of mutant creature or whatever.
Right.
Dude, and it's weird looking. It looks like a pit bull would be the easiest way, like the body of a pit bull, the head of a pit bull, but it's got a beak.
Yeah.
And lower teeth. Like, it's weird. It looks like a straight up mutant creature. So it went crazy. They started calling it the Hound of Baskersville. I don't know what that means. But anyway, so it had all these nicknames.
The Hounds of Baskerville, I believe, is a Sherlock Holmes story. By the way, it was about it was about this mystery that Holmes and Watson went and reviewed about the murders and the attacks of this what was known as the Baskerville Hound, and they solved the case or whatever. Blah 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 blah. But that's why.
So, did that stem from this nickname?
No, the nickname came from the story, but the story didn't go the other direction.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Montauk Monster was found in like 2010 or 2011. It was like 10 years ago or some shit. It was
2008. Yeah. 2008.
Yeah, so 12 years ago. So it's pretty recent. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes. Long time ago.
Wow, that shows what I know. I'm like, you mean that new one with like fucking Robert Downey Jr.? Is that the original? No, I know it's not. I know. With all their torches.
Everybody's got a torch.
Yeah. so long story short, the media went crazy. They were talking about, is it a sea turtle, a mutant? What was the other one? A pit bull. Somebody said it was something else. Well, turns out the Montauk Monster was an animal carcass identified as a dead raccoon. Son of a bitch.
With a beak?
So that washed ashore on the beach near the business district. So not only did, hold on, the monster has been discussed. So first of all, you'll love this. Somehow the monster, the Montauk Monster made it on Ancient Aliens.
Of course it did.
Like three different major alien television shows. And I'm like, how the fuck? Okay. And I didn't even get into that because for me, once I heard like raccoon, I was like, all right. But so like, what was the famous guy, Anna Holmes claiming this is, no. There was a bunch of, so literally like people in the field went and compared it. Scientists, what's one of those famous zoo animal?
Well, Steve Irwin. Like, Steve Irwin.
Not Steve Irwin, but that kind of thing. Jeff something. Jeff.
Irwin. But yeah.
Fuck, what's his name? Anyway, one of those guys that's on TV and has an animal show, but obviously he has a background. He identified it as a raccoon, but like literally it's not like up for like they know. They said it's a raccoon. It's not up for debate anymore.
Well, why has it got a beak?
I don't know. The East Hampton Natural Resource Director had concluded that it was a raccoon with its upper jaw missing. So it's not really a beak, apparently. They had talked about how, let's see here. Local newspapers quoted an anonymous resident who claimed the animal was only the size of a cat, that it had a decomposed skeleton. Let's see, lighthearted, turtle, mutant. Damn, I can't find it. Literally, I'm not going to do the episode on this, so I didn't have any answers planned for you. But like, I read a bunch on it, and I was like, damn. So there was no, other than the cool internet stories doing what the internet does. I mean, it's kind of cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's the chupacabra type of thing. Like, oh, whoa, is it? But really, it's like I kind of hit a dead end pretty quick when I was like, fuck. Like the first sentence in Wikipedia is like, it's a raccoon. I was like, and so I was like, well, shit. So let me go a different direction. And so then I started digging. Well, then, of course, being the nerd that I am, and I've got some notes here, so I have to switch over to my laptop. I found one, my favorite article was on the Thrillist.com, and it said, basically, I forget what the title was, something like, inside the real-life time travel experiment that inspired Stranger Things. And I go, oh, like, hold on. I'm, like, obsessed with Stranger Things. So I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, now I can get excited because Montauk Island, which I didn't know, turned into Montauk Raccoon. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, I'm like, yes, Stranger Things somehow worked its way in here. So that's kind of where I'm going to go. And it basically is called the Montauk Project. Which is probably, I figured honestly that you either knew a lot about this or this is what's going to ring some bells to you. Because this is a real weird story.
So there's a whole lot of like local legend and lore that goes along with this area, like Plum Island, Montauk. When you started talking about Plum Island, where I thought you were going to go with it, like a lot of local legend, like you kind of brush the surface with it a little bit, but in local legend there is like, it's they do stuff with wildlife and they do this and they do that, but it's like not only is it supposed to do the thing with like targeted warfare against livestock, but like there's also the component that's supposed to be that it's kind of like the island of Dr. Moreau. And they do a whole bunch of like genetic testing and mutations with animals, combining different DNA. And so that was kind of like where the story of the Montauk Monster started with, back in the day, was that this was an escaped experiment. Like where the girl was saying, like, oh, it's a mutant from Plum Island, blah, 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 blah. That's kind of like a hint that a lot of the locals kind of talk about Plum Island as being, okay, it's fucking actually a research center for making like super fucking killer animals.
Killer animals, right.
But
and I did actually, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, and just other things that have kind of been linked to the Montauk area, like just like science, like military science experiments and shit like that. So when you were talking about the Stranger Things thing, I'm also not going to steal your thunder because I want to hear the rest of your episode. But I am actually aware of some that is why the episode is suggested, I believe, is because it starts kind of like, if you look into the Montauk Monster, it is a rabbit hole story.
Oh, dude.
Shit starts on like, oh, okay, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this?
Like, so it reminded me of when you gave me time travel, and I was like, what story? How am I going to do time travel in an hour? Like, holy shit. And I chose that one dude. You know what I mean? And then we bullshit forever. So I chose this mainly just because I'm such a fucking geek for Stranger Things that's what piqued my interest. And so that's where I started. But then it turned into like, oh, dude, like this is weird, man. So we'll talk about this and we can always go off. But I think this is probably going to fill our time frame. And there's probably more rabbit holes surrounding Montauk Island than anything that I've research to date. Like maybe time travel fair, that's so huge, but you know what I mean, specifically. So the subject line that got my attention, it says that far-fetched scenario that corresponds to Stranger Things is only part of the Long Island legend. So hold on to your egos. Fuck, dude, I'm sitting here talking about how big of a Stranger Things fan I am. Egos, waffles, number 11. Hold on to your egos. The story of the so-called Montauk Project gets even weirder than what we've seen on the Netflix gem so far. So I was like, okay, I'm in. You know what I mean? So that's why I literally chose this. But they even said it right there. There's so many strange things on the Long Island legend, and there's a lot of stories that surround it. So you were right. Rumors that the U.S. government had been conducting experiments in psychological warfare in Montauk at either Camp Hero or the Montauk Air Force Station began to bubble up in the mid-'80s. Preston B. Nichols legitimized the theorizing when he detailed the supposed events in a series of books, The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. So that was like in 1982. He recovered repressed memories about his stint as a subject in a mysterious experiment. Soon, others involved with the Montauk Project came forward to corroborate some of Nichols' seemingly outlandish claims. This has got the story with just one of those guys, and we've done a few episodes with one of those conspiracy theorist type of dudes, or one of those alien dudes that are just so far out there that it's almost like, how could they even make this up? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was the Toynbee tiles? Like that dude. I'm like, man, there's something to it. So anyway, as these and other subjects recovered more of their memories, they gave numerous interviews about their involvement in experiments involving space, time, and other dimensions. Depending on the interview and when it was documented, the scope of what was happening in Montauk is expansive enough to include many other conspiracies. As of now, the going narrative leading up to the 83 incidents during World War II with a much more famous covert military operation. This goes back. Have you heard of the Philadelphia experiment?
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course I have. Of course
I know. Of course, yeah. So I had, it rang a bell, but I didn't know much about it. But in October 43, the U.S. military supposedly conducted secret experiments in the naval shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on a quest to discover a way to foil Nazi radar so that they could safely transport supplies to the Allies in Europe. The Navy had never admitted to any of these tests taking place, but according to conspiracy theorists as far back as 1955, it not only succeeded in uncovering how to make its ship invisible to radar, but accidentally managed to cause a battleship to travel. Well, no one's quite sure. To another time, into a different dimension, the ship went somewhere, and after the military learned about the negative effects overexposure to their version of the upside down had on the crew, upside down, it shut the project down. So, and it goes on for a while about that. I don't want to make this episode about that, but that's pretty crazy. I mean, the fact that, I mean, what's your theory? Is it total malarkey bullshit? Or is there some...
So the story that I've heard about this is, you know, somebody was telling the story about how they were drinking in a bar, and then there was this guy that used to work at the shipyard or whatever when this experiment happened, and they basically wrapped this whole battleship in copper wire or whatever, and then ran shit tons of electromagnetic energy through it. And when they did that, the ship disappeared. Like complete, like not only from like radar, but like nobody could see it, nothing, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Well, when it comes back, they went into the ship, and it was like a scene out of Event Horizon. Like there was like no really, like there was like the whole crew was dead. Everybody that was on the ship was dead. Like some of the people had become fused with the metal, like in the walls and shit. The guy like had said it was like a horror film that he would, you know, had walked into, and like all this stuff, blah 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 blah. I kind of feel like, because we know that the U.S. government did a lot of things with like stealth and cloaking, especially during World War II. They're trying to get, you know, their ships past U-boats and things like that. I'm sure that this is a story based in at least some level of truth. I think that what they ended up doing was they probably cooked people like popcorn by running that much energy through a fucking steel battleship and just melted the fuck out of people like they were in a microwave. And horrible. I mean, it would look like, especially if somebody like fucking exploded from electricity, it's going to look like they're fused with the metal. Like, yeah, like right. Melted right to it, you know? You ever had a piece of bacon stick to a pan?
That is a lovely fucking image. Goddamn.
So,
all right.
I feel like it was a guy telling that story, and everybody turned it into blah, 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 blah. And that's the reason the Navy's not coming out and saying, yeah, we fucking did this, is because they're like,
we did it.
Like, we don't want people fucking with this. Like, this is probably not a great choice. We just cooked 80 fucking dudes on a boat.
Yeah, our bad. So well, there was a movie called The Philadelphia Experiment. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, and it's terrible.
Yeah, apparently it was like under. Yeah, I didn't see it, but anyway, so I think that's why it's familiar to me. But again, a horrible image to think, but I think it's probably loosely based on some facts, but you never know. So after seeing The Philadelphia Experiment in 1988, 57-year-old Al, I think it's Bielek, B-I-E-L-E-K, couldn't shake the eerie feeling that he'd seen it somewhere before. Undergoing various forms of New Age therapies, Bielek was able to uncover repressed memories of having worked on the Montauk Project in the 1970s and 80s. He also ascertained that his memories had been locked away to keep the experiment secret. As his memories came flooding back, he learned that his name wasn't Al Bielek after all. He was born Edward Cameron. He'd also worked on the Philadelphia Experiment with his brother, Duncan Cameron, when both men were in their mid-20s. This is where it gets weird. A few years later, Al Bielek.
This is where it gets weird? It hasn't been weird yet? Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. It's been weird from jump. A few years later, Al Bielek presented his story at a mutual UFO network conference. Of course, the Philadelphia Experiment was real, he said, and he was the proof, having lived out the World War II section of the movie. Bielek claimed that sometime in the 1940s, Nikola Tesla figured out how to make the USS Eldridge invisible, and in the process opened up a time wormhole into the future that sucked in the ship. The Cameron brothers were on board, jumping off the vessel and landing on Montauk's Camp Hero on August 12, 1983. The military promptly sent them back through the wormhole with a mission: destroy the equipment on the Eldridge. According to Balick, the brothers completed their mission, though that didn't stop. Yeah, that didn't stop the government from doing more experiments on building portals into the future. Oh, this dude, man. During a 1990 speech for the Mutual UFO Network, Balick described in vague terms how he'd been de-aged, had his memory wiped, and had been forced to live out the rest of his life as Al Balick. He explained how in the early 60s, he, as Edward, had convinced his father to have another child so they could port Duncan's consciousness from 1983 into the sibling born in 1963. Balick referred to this version of Duncan as walk-in soul. He also suggested that a 1983 accident, as detailed as he gets, caused him to begin aging rapidly. There's a video with this next guy, that Preston Nichols, that these dudes, they believe this shit, man. Either that or they're just, again, brilliant actors. I don't know. It's one of those, they know every little detail. So, and I could tell by your face. And I knew, I even told you in the text earlier, I was like, you're going to kind of have a field day with this, I have a feeling. Do you want to go ahead and get through it? Or are you biting your tongue?
Just
okay.
finish.
Okay. Balick's stories circulated and gained the attention of Preston Nichols. That's the guy in the video. If you guys want to Google it, Google Preston Nichols, when psychic powers become psychic espionage. It's hilarious. The lady interviewing him the whole time like giggles and then like realizes the dude's serious, and then she's like, oh, fuck, I gotta like journalism. Like, it's hilarious. But anyway, he's not joking.
That's the new the new phrase. Like, just like whenever we have to stop, you like journalism.
Journalism. Balick's story circulated and gained the attention of Preston Nichols, who would befriend Balick and tell the Cameron brothers and his own story. And Montauk Projection, Experiments in Time. Anyway, this guy writes a book, basically, and he writes about his time working at Camp Hero on the secret experiments. Specifically during the 70s, he claimed he'd work with Balick on something called the Montauk Chair. Now, this was a piece of furniture that used electromagnetics to amplify psychic powers. Duncan Cameron, the walk-in soul child version, born in 1963, was found to have psychic powers and became the focus of many of the Montauk Chair experiments. Apparently, Duncan could manifest objects just by thinking about them while in the Montauk Chair. One of the experiments Nichols describes sounds a lot like the experiment being performed on 11 before she opens the portal to the Upside Down, which I just think it's the coolest part about this for me is it's like, it sounds like such a crazy fucking good story. I wish they'd make a show. Fuck yeah, they did.
Oh yeah, they made that. They did that.
Yeah. I can't remember. Do you like Stranger Things?
Oh, I love it. I love that show.
Okay. I thought you did. Okay, cool.
I love it because it's science fiction.
Oh, yeah. Key word. Dude, it's like the Goonies meets Aliens meets E.T., you know, I don't know. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a great show, man.
Yeah. All right, cool. So Nichols continued to experiment with Duncan, and this came up a lot about other kids, and then it's like I already knew the story because I watched all the episodes of Stranger Things, but it's funny to hear what they obviously tweaked it to make it a little more entertaining, although this is pretty fucking entertaining. So he continued to experiment with Duncan, who was such a powerful psychic that no one suspected that he was a man from the distant past inserted into a new body. Why would they? He tried to harness his adept subject's powers in the Montauk Chair to conduct mind control experiments using special radio dishes at Camp Hero. This is where the other children come in. In his book, Nichols writes of other boys being brought in and experimented on. Some were sent through a portal into the unknown of space-time. Stranger Things, that's 11, so which suggests that there's 10 others. She's number 11, or at least 10 others. So let's see. In Nichols' book, these abductees are known as the Montauk Boys. And since Nichols and Balick started speaking about their regained memories, other Long Island men have rediscovered that they were frequently abducted from their homes by Camp Hero scientists who wanted to break them psychologically so that they could implant subconscious commands. Jesus. Let's see. After several years of experimenting with Duncan and the Montauk chair, Nichols claims that they could reliably travel to other times and places, even to Mars. Just throw that in there. Eventually, they were able to program Duncan with some basic commands so that the poor kid didn't need to be confined to the chair all the time. So nice. At one point, however, Nichols' superior told him to turn on the Montauk chair and leave it running through August 12, 1983. As the story goes, time-traveling switch, the Montauk Project successfully created a time wormhole to 1943 with power at both ends. That's how Ed and Duncan Cameron of 1943 came through the portal in that event described by Al Balick. What they're doing is basically saying, see, it proves it. Where the whole time I'm like, I actually got lost and I'm reading it. I've read it like 10 times and I'm still confused. But I'm sure you get the gist of where this guy's going. Let me skip through. Basically, they said that a bunch of kids were tortured and they were science projects. And there's a bunch of stuff. If you just Google the Montauk, Island or whatever, there's a lot of stuff about child abuse. And a lot of it kind of comes into play with this. They don't talk. I think there's more on the mutant animal stuff than there is like this kind of child abuse, I guess. But there's a lot of shit out there. Nichols had to smash. Basically, we finally decided we'd had enough of the whole experiment. The contingency program was activated by someone approaching Duncan while he was in the chair and simply whispering, "The time is now." At this moment, he let loose a monster from his subconscious, and the transmitter actually portrayed a hairy monster. It was big, hairy, hungry, and nasty, but it didn't appear underground in the null point. It showed up somewhere on the base. It would eat anything it could find, and it smashed everything in sight. Several different people saw it, but almost everyone described it a different beast. Nichols had to smash all of the equipment that powered the Montauk chair before the beast disappeared back into nothingness. Shit, no proof. That incident, plus the successful time anchor that was built between August 12, 1943 and 83, ensured that the project would be shuttered. Employees were then brainwashed, and in 1984, the lower levels of the base were filled in with cement. So one of the many bizarre stories that happened at Camp Hero, obviously Stranger Things took, but dude, it goes on and on and on. You kind of get the gist of Montauk is, some of it's total bullshit, and I can tell by your face, I think that I can almost fucking probably guess what you're going to say next. Some of it is likely or possible or could have happened. This story is so far out there that's why I chose it. But there's not really any of it that I can go, well, maybe this happened, or it's based on something true and they're twisting the story. I think it's completely, in my opinion, in the mind of these men. And this is an awesome story that they literally either are, maybe there's something screw loose or something, I don't know. But this is what they all swore happened. Nowhere, and I even looked, was it, did they ever come clean and say it was bullshit or anything like that? Was it all a hoax for media? Was it about money? I think one of the guys died in 2011. Nichols and Balick. Hold on. The bulk of the Montauk Project is set around the same time as Stranger Things, but true believers like Nichols and Balick, up until he passed away in 2011, maintained that these experiment dealings with the expansion of human consciousness and future technologies are still going on somewhere, somehow. In 2008, an unidentified carcass of an animal washed up on the beach of Long Island. There's that little fun part. Urban explorers still venture onto the Camp Hero, where some claim you can still hear screams in the abandoned tunnels. Sporadic reports that the closed base still draws military level of power despite being inactive, persists, and the truth about Camp Hero and what happened there continues to be concealed beneath multiple layers of rumors, myth, and the fiction of Stranger Things. Yeah, that's the volley, man. What do you think? It was a mouthful, I know.
It's all true.
It's
100% true. I agree with all of it. I think this is a true story. I can get behind everything these guys are saying. There's absolutely no holes in the story. They
even mentioned your boy Tesla. I figured you were going to be like, oh, well, no, Tesla actually did this fucking blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, boy.
No, I mean, I do rather enjoy the information around Tesla, but he's got his own kind of mythos. I kind of want to do Tesla in his own episode, so I'm not really going to dig into that too much.
Cool.
But, dude, I mean, where the fuck do you start, bro? Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
How come that? All right. Why are you guys not doing anything? Like, if you can do this, like, if you can go back and forth like this, why aren't you doing anything with it? Like, you're doing parlor tricks. Like, you can travel back and forth in time. You can make
literally
make a fucking cure for cancer appear. Like, what the
do
fuck?
something. We bitched about this, and I knew, I was like, man, this is so close to the time travel pitch. You know what I mean? Or the story that I did. Because it's so strange that it's like, yeah, you're right. If you found this power, where'd it go, and why didn't you do anything good with it? So I agree with you 100%.
Or go back into 46 and write a book, and hide the book, put it somewhere where all of a sudden everybody fucking gets the book mailed to them. Kind of like that Back to the Future thing when the fucking dude shows up at everybody at his house with the fucking envelope. He's like, we've been holding on to this since 1856. Why the fuck is there? There's just so many gaps. And the fact that you got one group of crazies saying that the other group of crazies story is corroborate, I mean, there's.
Well, their claim to actually be on the ship, to be in the Philadelphia experiment. I'm like, dude, there's got to be. I was looking for the other side of things where somebody who had the history books or who was on that ship called them out and called bullshit. But it almost felt like everything that I read that people were like, I'm not touching them. They're just fucking too out there. It's not worth my time to prove them wrong. That's kind of what people were almost being just sarcastic about it. You know what I mean? Kind of like, I mean, we're being. So it's nobody really took them seriously. And I think that's, probably why nobody disproved them or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well,
officially.
So, okay, let's get this out of the way real quick. Do I believe the government has experimented with all types of fucked up shit? Yes, 100%. Do I think it still goes on? Yes. I completely agree it still goes on. Do I think that they made mistakes with some of the things that they were trying? Yes. All cutting edge science, all science that pushes the envelope makes some mistakes and fucks up some shit. Do I think that any of those things lend any credence to the fact to the story that these people are telling? Zero credence to it. As for dude, the repressed memory thing, dude, I do believe that people will fucking repress bad fucking shitty memories.
Oh yeah.
I believe that people can fucking have traumatic brain injuries that'll fuck with somebody's memory sets, and to some degree I probably brainwashing does exist. The amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, if you overwhelm that area of the brain, it's really the only area of the brain that can overpower higher brain function. So that's why you can be frightened so badly that you can die. is because once the amygdala takes over, it can actually start shutting down natural processes, involuntary, muscle function and stuff, because it takes over control.
You'd have a heart attack because you were so scared. Like literally, you die from fear of death. Like you had a heart attack.
It's not really a heart attack. It's your amygdala is so in charge of things, it doesn't know how to run the rest of the body, so it just stops sending the signal to the heart to pump. So a heart attack is usually like a functionary error, like a clog that hits, an explosion, those types of things. When the amygdala has taken over to the point that you die from that, it's basically the heart just stops. So it's because that part of the brain doesn't know how to run shit.
Protect your amygdala. What is it called? Amygdala?
The amygdala.
Protect your amygdala.
Yeah. Well, shelter your amygdala. You don't want it taking over.
Okay.
But like this story, I mean, it's like I can see why Stranger Things ran with the storyline. It also reminds me a lot of the show Fringe, which I feel like we got a lot of episodes that kind of bounce off of some storylines that went into Fringe. But
Fringe is awesome.
I will say this, like, even like me suspending reality to try to like, okay, like I'm going to see my angle into this, see like where, dude, like it's almost worse than Bigfoot. It's almost worse than Bigfoot for me. Like, it's like the Area 51 stories, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base stories, dude, are there science like military science labs out there? Yeah, dude, there certainly are. Are they doing crazy shit? Yeah, man.
New York Magazine said that this was Camp Hero in Montauk is the East Coast's Area 51. Yeah. I'm like, dude. So they're just running with this story, which I get it. But I hear what you're saying. It's not like, so when I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So for argument's sake, let's say everything these guys said is true. Every single word of it. Everything that they've said is true. Yeah. How are they still alive?
Yeah, one of them's not.
Well, yeah, but this is an upper echelon fucking military experiment. They're not just going to let them walk out and fucking tell this story.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like, they'd be dead fucking immediately. And it's not like, it doesn't sound like they're hiding very well.
No, right.
Or even concerned about hiding.
My biggest thing is, you just nailed it, is didn't they mention that they managed to figure out brainwashing? So don't you think that they would have been brainwashed themselves to shut up? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense. They wouldn't have been allowed. You're right. They wouldn't have been able to go out and tell their shit.
And I know this is weird, and this is a weird thing to hang my hat on in this scenario, but like at the beginning of this, when you said that the dude lived his whole life till he was 55 or 65 or something, and then all of a sudden these repressed memories came out that he'd been living this other life, and that he, yada yada yada. Like,
he was an infant, yeah.
how did they build him this fake previous life? Like, you have memories, like you have a life. There are pictures of you as a kid. Like, where is this? How did they manufacture a fake life for you when they erased your brain? It's like Total Recall. Like, okay, like I mean, as soon as that part came out, I was like, well, wait a minute, how did we get this? I don't know, man. Like I've heard of the Philadelphia experiment thing.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree that they fucking tried to do some shit in that the Eldridge battleship got fucked up pretty bad.
Yeah, of course.
But I feel like that's a game of telephone. These guys sound like they are trying to write a story, and all of them are kind of like had kind of worked on a piece of it.
Yeah.
And then, reality got blurred, and then we're telling this story. But there's just so many fucking gaps. Like the chair that like he can manifest shit out of. Like, well,
then he didn't have to sit in the chair anymore.
Yeah, like, and why aren't you doing anything with it? Like if you have this crazy Professor X power, like you set loose a beast that went and killed everything inside the, like, why couldn't you project, like, I don't know, man, fucking anything, like anything that would be helpful to the rest of the world.
Yeah, dude, I agree 100%. Like, so I don't know if when someone suggested, and I don't remember who initially suggested Montauk, or if that was you. I don't remember. I think no, somebody had to suggest it. Montauk Island.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I'll have to go back to it.
Well, it's fine. And people voted on it, number 2, and I was so confused because I was like, I don't know what it is. So what did everybody know that I don't know? So I don't know what you guys expected, what part of the story that you thought, if it was the monster, or if you knew about this whack job, or if it was Plum. I don't know what you expected me to do. And I looked at a lot of different stuff. There's a Brookhaven National Lab that is basically renamed Hawkins Lab. Like, it's some crazy experimenting going on in labs around there. There's a lot of wild stuff going on in New York, Montauk. But I don't know what the most famous story of it was. So this is the one that I chose because I thought it was the weirdest. And basically Stranger Things literally was what fucking the reason I did it. But there's a lot of weird stuff going around that area. The monster was a raccoon, apparently. I mean, that's what they said. So I was like, all right, damn it. So it's like every angle or everything that I read, I didn't ever go, oh, well, that's actually freaky, or that's okay, I wonder what's happening here. Everything had an explanation, or was just too weird to be, taken serious.
I mean, I feel like the point of this story, and I think I've actually pitched a story like this to you, is just mad scientists. Like,
yeah, man, why out there?
Like I don't know that anybody was really looking for you to go on. Like, I think that would have been in the suggestion. Like, I want to hear about this,
Right. That's true. Yeah.
I think that the idea is like, why is there so many weird urban legends attached to this one area? And like, really, like before, like you said that before you started working on the story, is like, dude, you'd never heard of this place. A lot of people really haven't. But if you're in that weird, like, A, if you live up there, or B, if you like frequent, conspiracy theory websites, or whatever, like MUFON stories and stuff like that, like you end up kind of in the same arena of conversations. And like, there is a lot of, like, I mean, I personally am interested in the story because of the Philadelphia experiments, and I want the Eldridge story. I thought you were going to kind of go that direction with it. Tesla is actually linked to a lot of the experimentations that are going on there. I believe Tesla had one of his main labs in New Jersey. Don't actually quote me on that. I know it was in that area somewhere. It was either New York or New Jersey, I believe. But there's just a lot of weird shit, urban legends, conspiracy theories, whatever, but it's all attached to this area. And nothing breeds a good conspiracy theory as much as, I've never fucking heard of this area either. Yeah. Right. Maybe it is a conspiracy theory because nobody's fucking heard of this place.
That's true. I mean, that's very true. I mean, so I was like, whoa, like, holy shit, this place sounds crazy. And I think what it is it's like a touristy place to go to, like nice beaches, apparently. I mean, however nice a beach in fucking New York can be, but I grew up in shithole Florida, so there, I mean, you know what I mean? I'm comparing beaches, but like the Plum Island thing, the more I'm kind of looking around, that's popping up a lot more than, and I feel like, back up, the Philadelphia experiment, the Philadelphia experiment. When I started reading that, I go, ooh, I was almost more interested in that, and a part of me almost completely switched gears and just did that. But I was like, let me be fair and actually do the Montauk related subject.
Yeah.
But the Plum Island, it says here, a bio-research facility who's building 257. So apparently it's massive. Also gave us Lyme disease and West Nile virus. I'm like, fantastic. So, I mean, apparently that's really well known, and they call it like the government's grotesque animal hybridization factory. So that's fairly well known. I didn't know it, but you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's where
there's definitely a lot.
Kind of like known as like the island of Dr. Moreau kind of research center. There's a lot of directions to go with it, and I don't like, you know, sometimes when we get suggestions, they're very like hashed out. Like somebody's like, hey, I want you to start here, and I want you to kind of explain how we get from point A to B to C, you know?
Yeah.
And whenever we get one of those kind of suggestions, if there's the ability to kind of play it out that direction, I think we do a pretty good job of trying to accommodate that request. But sometimes people just send us like a sentence or 3 words or
a name. Yeah, right.
Name, and we kind of have to figure out and like go from there, like what kind of story we're going to tell with it.
You know, like Camp Hero. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, I mean, I mean, personally, with the episode that you presented, I enjoyed it. It did take a lot of the weird turns of time travel, which I was kind of expecting that we were definitely on the, all right, we were well inside the conspiracy theory, urban legend discussion. Barrier here, and you know, I don't think that there's any other way that you can do this story. Like,
you know what I mean?
You know, I do feel like in the comments section, you know, because we will get people who have suggested an episode and then listen to it and then come back and say, hey, you know, what about, you know, this is what this is what else I kind of thought, you know, blah 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 blah. You missed this, or you know, which is fine. It's exactly, you know, what we asked. Yeah, I like what we asked for. And this was such a broad subject that, with the suggestion being just the island, like just the area, just the region, really. Like it wasn't even like had they just done the Montauk Monster, like
Well, I was going to, because that was the most, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that sort of monster mutant. You know, I like the Kentucky goblins. I like Bigfoot. You know my theory on it, but I mean, I like those kind of like weird animals, monsters and elves and weird shit that, you know, even though whatever, they're weird and it's usually bullshit. I like that. So I got excited, but then literally the first thing I did was check Wiki. That's what popped up when I Googled it. The first sentence says it's a raccoon. I was like, well, damn. So I started digging more. The one thing I was going to say before I forget, so the Camp Hero, it's apparently an abandoned military base, and there's a state park, but it's still guarded. And I don't know if most abandoned or any abandoned military bases are guarded. So that is the only thing that I was like, well, that's kind of intriguing. The only little bit of me goes, well, why? You know what I'm saying? That was the only thing that I could find that was like, there's no answer like that I could find.
I would legitimately argue that every single military base or lab, even if it is decommissioned, will still be guarded.
Maybe.
Because you don't know. You don't know what they've been fucking working on. There could be fucking radiation down in the fucking then the fucking government's like dealing with, you know, 150 people radiation poisoning, or they got fucking stockpiles of strychnine or ammunition or whatever the fuck it is from World War II. And it's like, look, we just didn't get rid of this shit. Well, let's put 2 guys working the fucking checkpoint. Like, you know, let's put 10 guys walking the fucking perimeter every day.
Yeah. Well, hey, and something else that popped up that and I actually never done this, but I will extend a challenge to anyone who can send us either an email or make it a comment. But I want you to actually give me an answer on this or tell me more about it, because I don't want to really do a whole other episode on this. But And Camp Hero sounds like it could be an entire episode. Right here it says, Camp Hero, decommissioned military base located in Montauk, is thought by many to have once been the site of graphic government-sanctioned human experiments comparable to the atrocities committed by the Nazis in concentration camps during World War II. Now, I don't know if they're referring to the children, if this is the same whack job story, but it doesn't seem like it is. So I wonder if there's something more in a different angle that it could have gone on. So hit me up, or I don't know if you know, but if there's something more to that that's actually more well known. Yeah, I didn't think you would, but
I mean, I know, like, I know pretty much what I just laid out. Like, I know that Plum Island was the island of Dr. Moreau. I know that that's apparently where they did the Philadelphia experiment with the battleship Eldridge. I know some of the stuff about that experiment. I know that there's a ton of shit that goes into like weird experiments there. As for as deep as it goes, I don't fucking know. I don't really know how far they dug.
Yeah, so if there's anybody out there that does know, shoot us a comment, because I am curious, but to be honest with you, I don't want to do any more research on it because I've looked. But it seems like there could be more to the story than just what I told you, and it may be actually just an extension of the whole, the kids, like basically the Stranger Things theme, which that could be all it is. But I'm just curious. So if anybody knows, hit us up. It's pretty cool. Like, I mean, there's a lot of question marks and a lot of crazy shit that surrounds the area, but was any of it legit? I don't know. I mean, other than
I will say this, like, I find it very interesting that and not only the time travel episode that you did, and then this one now, which has time travel implications also attached to it.
Right.
That we usually have a blind 90-year-old woman from Romania who's been blind her entire life, who has better accuracy with very clouded and shaded fucking predictions of the future than any of these assholes that are saying they're time travelers.
Right.
How are
this one got this one even got too weird, where it's almost like they went too far with the whole, he was another, I even got confused. I couldn't even explain. Somebody asked me to explain the part about where he was then in the child's body. And dude, I got lost because he made it too complicated. It's like they dug and they tried to make it so convincing that they almost overdid it. Like, I don't think anybody took him seriously, in other words. At least those two guys. I mean, that's my question. Is there other stories that are more possible, or, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. You'll probably see your answers to your questions on the newest episode of Ancient Aliens.
Yeah. Well, no, they only cover the Montauk Monster, which I don't know how they worked that in there. I don't understand.
It's going to be an alien experiment. You know, they were experimenting on an animal.
On raccoons. Back to that. If you guys look at the image, when I first did, I go, that it's huge, but truthfully, it's the size of a cat. You can't tell because there's just a photograph of that. There's no reference of size. So, I mean, and after being stuck in the ocean for however long it was in there, you know, the water, you know, it's a raccoon, and I get it. I mean, you know, there's not really anything else to it.
I mean, to be completely honest, I've seen the picture. I know a little bit about the story. I legitimately, just because of the appearance of it, to me it looked like a fucking sea turtle with no shell.
Yeah. Well, they said that's it. Oh, what did they say? They said it couldn't be because it's not how a sea, something about the bone structure, but it's not how it comes out of the shell.
Which is fine. I'm not a cryptozoologist. I'm not an actual zoologist. I have limited knowledge of biological systems, especially in the animal world.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, my no reference going into the situation. That's what I had always assumed that it was. I gotta be honest, I don't see raccoon when I look at it.
So
but
here, this is what I was looking for earlier. Paleozoologist Darren Nish studied the photograph and concluded from the corpse's visible dentation, skull shape, and front paws that the creature was a raccoon, with its odd appearance merely a byproduct of decomposition of water action, removing most of the animal's hair and some of its flesh. A couple people disagreed with them. Some people were saying that it was fake and superimposed and it was clay or it was made. Jeff Corwin, that's the freaking dude that I was trying to think of. Jeff Corwin also identified the carcass as that of a raccoon. It was in Monster Quest, which I'm like, okay, Monster Quest, that's the type of show that should have this. Alien whatever? No, not so much. Another lady, a cryptozoologist, examined a latex replica of the monster and concluded that it was remains of a raccoon due to similar body structure and skull shape. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I'll have to go back and look at it. I'm just saying, like, me going into this story with very limited research ahead of time, I had always assumed that it was a shell-less turtle.
Well, dude, it looks like it because it's the head shape and like the weird beak on the front looking thing, but apparently it's just broken off. But they said because of the way that it's attached to the shell with its spine that it couldn't be or something. So,
which is fine.
Anyway,
obviously, again,
it's why I didn't do that episode on that, because there really wasn't that much. I mean, now well, there's a story of like, where did it go? Like, because they went back to look for it, and it's like, well, it got washed back in the ocean. But some people were saying that it got taken away by one of the locals, and now it's just a skeleton in some dude's backyard, and he keeps it and charges people to look at, you know. So I was like, there's not really anything cool or interesting. So I got kind of, you know, turned off of that one. So hence the weird ass Stranger Things one.
No, I liked it. I liked the direction you went with the episode. I do like the idea of like Fort Hero or whatever.
Camp Hero, yeah.
Episode.
Camp Hero sounds like it could be something cool.
You know, we kind of had a discussion about episodes and stuff for the future, and I've always liked that fucking like mad scientist shit. Some of the Cold War Russian mad scientist experiments that I
Russian
know
sleep
experiments are pretty fucking crazy. So
the Russian experiment.
that was a fun story, man. But no, I mean, when it comes to Russians, dude, they've done some fucking crazy shit that is legitimately more frightening than that fucking creepypasta story.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I like anything like that, man. That's why I love that Frankenstein's Army movie. You know, it's so out there. It's wild. But there's some crazy shit. This one, I think you and I agree. It's just too, you know, it's just too out there to really even. I don't want to talk about any of the details because it's just too far-fetched. You know what I'm saying? It is perfect for a series on fucking television. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which that's what it is. So
yeah, a science fiction story. Like, it's got a lot of great elements of science fiction in there. Not seeing a lot of science fact in there.
No.
So,
in fact, I think the title should be like Montauk Island, you know, the real Stranger Things or some shit. Like, it needs to be a reference to that, because essentially that's all it is. It's basically telling people where Stranger Things came from. Like, and really the writers of Stranger, apparently one of them got sued for something related to stealing an idea from somebody. But obviously, you know, hey, a lot of the wacky writing was already done for you guys, because fucking there it is.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but it makes for great TV. So I'm glad somebody, honestly, I love the fact that whoever suggested it did it, because I learned something new, and it was a wild ride just doing the research. Like, I could literally feel you and hear you rolling your eyes and just like while I was reading the research, dude. I was like, oh fuck. So it was fun. I appreciate the suggestion.
I don't know that, like, I think I would have done the episode the exact same way you did. So,
Yeah.
you know, hats off to you. I think you did a great job with telling um, a reality based, and when I say reality based, I mean uh, it's a creepy pasta story,
Yeah.
but it's actually being told by people who, at least to some degree, are trying to sell it as real. So,
Well, yeah, you know, it's one of those, and we won't get into it. We've talked long enough, but you know, did those men really believe that was reality, that actually happened to them? And we'll never know. When the interviews that I watched with it, that dude was like, he's just this big old dude, like big old, just kind of real serious dude who's telling this story like matter of factly, like. And when he talks about the different dimensions, you know, he's talking about it just like we would talk about, you know, streets and directions. And I'm like, dude, are people that lost in their own reality that they've literally convinced themselves that it's true? Or are they just really good at fooling people and trying to make a buck? You know, I don't know. So either way.
Berkowitz thought his dog was the devil and talked him into killing people with a gun. So, yes, people are always that into their own reality, brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're probably right. Pretty scary shit, actually. That's the scary part of the story, I guess. Those dudes were fucking
untethered. The imagination, it can go some weird places, weird directions, man. Especially if you got nothing to like check it up. Like if the basis of your delusion is said to be, well, the reason that I can't answer this question is because I was brainwashed and because the government's hiding this information. It just has that cascading snowball effect of like, well, yeah, but I mean, in reality, the reason you can't make any kind of a coherent statement about this is because it's not true.
It's not real, right? It's bullshit. Yeah.
You know, it's like 50 cents for a bullet. That's what the government would spend and waste on the energy it would take to kill you. Like, why are they going to make this huge conspiracy to make you? Yeah. Why would they leave you alive telling this story that could potentially impact real experiments if this was a true story? You're not a hero to them. You're not some fucking, like, you know, whatever. Like, you don't even have a presence really on the internet or in social media or anything like that. So, like, they literally have no reason to leave you alive.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
If you're spilling the beans on this high level fucking experiment and fucking shit that they are on the cutting edge of breakthroughs.
Yeah, you didn't slip through the cracks, dude. You'd be gone.
You're not going to Costco to get fucking paper towels if that is the reality of the situation.
Oh shit! Ain't that the truth? We agree on this one. So, all right, man. Well, shit. Thanks for the suggestion, whoever you were. Thanks for voting, you guys. That was number 2. We've got 2 more that we're gonna knock out that were on the list, and then we'll throw up a new list for you guys to vote on. So keep that shit coming. Throw me some suggestions. Throw us some suggestions. Throw me some comments about what I just basically read you. If you want to tell me I'm full of shit and you've got proof, please share it with us. Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
That'd be an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, I'm done. Is that a bow for you? Is that what you say? Put a pretty bow on it?
Yeah, that was a good bow. That was a good enough bow for me, man.
All right, brother. Good shit, man.
All right, brother.